The prophet Ezekiel declares that the same generation that sees the rebirth of Israel will be also the same generation that sees the return of Jesus Christ. That is the baby boom generation. And that generation is 1946, so getting ready to turn 70 years old, and all the way up to 1963. That generation that saw the rebirth of Israel in 1948 will see the return of, so we can understand the season, we can understand the events of the times. But on this timeline, we start with 1050 BC, run down to 1000 BC, and all these dates are approximate depending on what study of history you look at. Okay, so I just went with a consensus, okay, just to give you an idea. We have King David's reign first, 1050 to 1000 BC. Israel was in its largest state during King David's reign. God had blessed King David. Solomon inherited an amazing country that was clearly the superpower of the world. Israel was clearly the land of milk and honey that God had promised Abraham. Okay, Solomon's reign 1000 BC to 922 BC. And then from that point forward, things are going to fall apart. Israel's going to divide into two. Solomon does not leave Israel the way he found it. We're going to have the kingdom years that are going to take place all the way from 922 BC to the 6th century BC, with Israel as the northern kingdom and Judah as the southern kingdom. Upon 720 BC to 586, the Assyrians take captive Israel. Isaiah warns, if you know the prophet Isaiah, Assyria takes control. 586, Babylon conquers Assyria, which we're going to study once we get to the book of Daniel, how Daniel predicted a lot of these events. The Babylonian captivity, 586 BC to 539. Then King Darius conquers Belshazzar in 539 BC, and so you have the Persians and Medes from 539 to 356. Then Alexander the Great conquers the Medes, 356 to 200 BC. You have the Greek captivity. You have what Daniel's going to call the leopard. Okay, from then 200 BC to 405 AD, you have the Romans in control, and then German barbarians are going to conquer the Roman Empire. 405 to 600 AD, you have Catholic oversight. You have the rise of Catholicism that's going to take over during that period. Then 600 AD to 1800 AD, you have Muslim captivity, where the Palestinians and the seed of Ishmael are in more control of the nation of Israel. 1800 to 1948, European and Muslim oversight of the Holy Land. 1948, which is going to be huge, if you want to highlight, circle it, the rebirth of Israel, where Ezekiel's prophecy that we're going to begin today is going to come to light. It would be as if we lived here in America under different control from different countries for over 2,800 years. This is an unprecedented event. And during this 2,800 years, the Jews scattered from their land. They did not occupy them. They scattered. They went as far as the east is from the west. But after the rebirth of Israel, then we're going to find out God's going to bring His children home. Israel in 1948 had roughly 400,000 Jews living there. Today they have almost 10 million Jews living in the Holy Land, which is a sign of the times that the Jewish people would return home. And now they have as many as 6 generations living in buildings or houses, with the oldest generation, of course, living on the first floor, the youngest generation living up on the top. It's very interesting. If you had heard a couple years ago, Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted to take land that was part of the Gaza Strip and build Jewish housing because they're running out of space to put places. Israel, though, is the size of New Jersey. At one point or another, under King David's reign, it was 10 times the size. Israel is going to get crowded with people returning. We've had some Americans leave the United States and take up citizenship in Israel as the Jews are returning home. Well, Ezekiel predicted this way back in the early 6th century BC. The book of Ezekiel is going to take place 580, somewhere in there. Some scholars say as early as 600 BC, where the prophet Ezekiel is going to predict these events as they have unfolded. I bring you good news. The prophet Ezekiel was 100% correct. History, as it is recorded in world history, any world history, will declare that Ezekiel was right on when he declared these things before they happened. He would declare that Israel would be held captive and God, until they repented of their sin and repented of the sins of their fathers. Okay, most likely starting from King Solomon right back to 1948. Okay, Ezekiel declared they would be held in captivity. God had to allow an evil man by the name of Adolf Hitler to come to power to wake up his people after he tried to annihilate them. To be quite frank, he tried to burn every one of them in an oven. People say all the time, why did God allow it? Well, God is sovereign. He knows what He's doing. The biggest reason He allowed it is to bring the last day prophecy into line so that Israel would be reborn. It would take something that drastic and something that evil. And what did the people do with our president, President Harry Truman, endorsing one of the first things that the people of Israel did after World War II, and right before they were recognized as an independent nation again, they repented for their sins of their fathers. I mean, it's amazing what we're going to read. We're going to read something written 2,800 years ago, and history's going to say every T was crossed, every I was dotted. The question is, will you guys hang with me and have a full understanding to where you can look at this and say, wow, I'm living in the last days. My house better be in order. Okay? Because I will go to my grave declaring this. It's not as California goes, so goes the world. It is as Israel goes, so goes the world. Jerusalem is the epicenter of the world. The Bible is going to back that up. We follow the Holy Land. And we're going to look at, when we get to Ezekiel 38, to where Israel is going to stand alone in these last days and going to bring into you article after article, news story after news story, where you can read stories where Israel is preparing to stand alone. And that means the United States will not be with them. The Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu said, we are prepared to fight without the support of one ally. Well, all I can tell you is that brother knows Ezekiel 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40. And he was just reelected to another term. He is prepared to lead the Jewish people. The Israelis is what they're called now. He is prepared to lead the Israelis right to the very end, knowing that God will protect His nation. And to where it's tragic, Jesus is going to say later in Matthew 24, where He's going to come like a thief in the night. How tragic. Because Jesus, if we follow His instruction and His prophets, we should be saying, Lord, it's like the guest you've been expecting at Thanksgiving. I've been expecting you. Lord, I've been looking up. I knew you were coming. I'm ready for you. You will also be able to explain to someone when they say, well, we've heard this for 2,000 years that Jesus is coming back soon, and He hasn't come back yet, so I don't think He's coming. You're going to know how to answer that question. How will you know how to answer that question? First, from a knowledge of God's Word, and two, you will be able to answer that question because you know the history of Israel. And compare the history with the current events, and you'll be able to say, Jesus is coming soon. We need to be ready. Matthew 24, Jesus says He cannot come until the signs of the times have been fulfilled. Well, do you know the signs of the times? Do you know that they're being fulfilled even right now as Israel's preparing to stand alone?